Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Choujin X, Chapter 23. When we last left our heroes, shit was going down. Tokio was largely getting his ass whooped by Azuma, mainly because he was not fighting back. But Azuma was just, disrupting traffic, throwing cars around. Tokio was having a bad day. We also have this weird little backstory bit that ties into the festival that's been happening while this whole fight's been going on, about the Great Choujin War and the Choujin nation of Great Guelta or something, and the War Choujin Queen. I don't know what any of that's about, and it barely ties into anything. But also, we get a little bit of flashback, sort of setting up more of Azuma's mental hang-ups. That it all kind of goes back to the sense that Tokio looks down on him. That Tokio, there was an arm wrestling match when they were kids that Tokio seemingly threw, and that sort of set Azuma on this path of a massive inferiority complex that is now destroying large chunks of Yamato. So, that's not great. But Tokio finally decides, fuck it, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and he goes full beast form, and that's where we leave off, with that fight continuing. So let's jump into Chapter 23, QEF. Now, normally, really with any Suishida manga, the chapter titles are, let's say, weird. But that just threw me for a loop. I got no idea what QEF is meant to be about. But we have images of, the lanterns from the festival still going, it's not a dam opening, I think? Either way, we move away from there because the fight's still going on. Azuma's just decked Tokio's, beak. And Tokio tries to swing back, but he misses, and Azuma kicks Tokio up the chin, and he goes flying over all the wrecks from earlier, and lands on the wall, staring down at Azuma, and just leaps for him. Azuma's ready for him, though, and they just go at it. Azuma looks tries to does catch Tokio, wraps him around the neck, and gets his feet around Tokio's feet in this sort of four-limbed grab there, and Tokio kind of panicked there. And they're flying. We see the road they're on is over the dam from the first page. It looks like this is. And as they go over the edge, spiraling towards the water, the move called the Hell Wheel. And it seems like they've hit a wall and are spinning down the wall, I think. And at some point Azuma lets go and Tokio jumps away from him. But not really jumped away, is sent flying away. And bounces off another wall and is headed further towards the water. He just keeps on falling. He's just going. I think Tokio's finally landed, and Azuma then jumps down to get on an even level with him. And Tokio's just not doing too well. Even in his full beast form, he is not having a good time right now. And we see, I think this is Tokio's thoughts of what Azuma said earlier in the encounter. Fight. Prove it. And Tokio, raises his little, claw. Oh, he's trying to raise himself, I think. Okay. Get a little ray as he thinks, prove what? And we see him, murmur out, raise, as he, I guess, maybe tries to slit his throat and fails or something? Or no, he does succeed. He succeeds. He does raise himself, because he comes back to his, full strength. He gets back up to fight Azuma. I'm not looking down on you. I respect you. So please, stop this, Azuma. I'm not sure he's, I think Tokio believes what he's saying, but I'm not sure he's, actually right, Maybe if there's an unconscious, he wants Azuma to be the cool one, which is why he threw the arm wrestling match way back when. Stop this, Azuma. Please. And from Azuma's, cuff, forms a blade that stabs into Tokio's wrist. Urgh! And then Azuma just headbutts him and sends him flying back into the water. And Tokio, once again, goes for the raise. Raise, a phenomenon that fuses destruction and creation, resulting in revival. For Choujin, it is a fundamental power. And Azuma, or Tokyo, once again risen, jumps at Azuma, and Azuma seems to like slice him across the chest. Here, use of their abilities breaks down their bodies. They overcome their humanity to the point of harm. And Tokyo seemingly has been raised again. That is what makes them Choujin. So, okay, on that point, it seems like we've gotten many different definitions over this series' relatively short lifespan as to what makes a Choujin a Choujin. Is it raising? Is it the whole having some kind of complex we saw back in chapter 20 or 21, I think it was. I think it was during a cloaker. I don't know. It's a little weird. They're pseudo-deaths. Harm their own humanity. Okay. That's an interesting thing. And that doesn't tie into Azuma got cut to pieces before he became the cloaker Choujin he is now. Though he only died once. Like Tokyo has killed himself like 3 or 4 times this fight. And so it seemed like he would be even more inhuman. But he's tries to get mutters out as he dies again. Stop. Raise. He goes for it again. But we see his hand, and now one finger has like these 4 fingers are like somewhat clawed, whereas this one is starting to like curl in on itself. The more often they confront death, the more Choujin-like they become, and the less human. However, and he's like, slit his throat again, I think. We hear like a squelch of blood. Through repeated maiming and revival, Tokyo has long since reached his limit. So even Ray's is not helping him now. Because now, Azuma's like, his entire arm is a blade as he like stabs Tokyo through the abdomen. Okay. So, and Tokyo's unbeastified. So Tokyo can't raise anymore. I don't know what we do here. But Azuma just stands there, breathing a little heavy, but just triumphant. I've won. And then something happens. Okay. So I always say with this series that, like, Ishida's is having so much fun just drawing all this. And it really shows here. Like, I don't know what this is meant to represent, but it's like, it looks like feathery. It feels like Tokyo's becoming even more of a bird. But, like, there's no... I can't get a shape of his body or anything. He just looks like a bird. Or not like a bird, like, he looks like feathers. It looks like a collection of feathers. Either way, Azuma seems surprised at this transformation. And Tokyo... Or I guess Azuma drops Tokyo, and Tokyo lands. And he seems... Now that he's, like, collected himself, he seems more humanoid than that initial 2-page spread on 20 and 21. But, like, his eyes are gone. His lips seem like a full, bright red, like, pure white face, white claw hands. And so, he came to understand. And this new Tokyo form, seemingly holding some kind of sword, just whacks Azuma with it. Azuma sent flying, stunned at the sudden change. What? He hits the water, gets right back up. It was not defeat. And so Azuma sent flying, and he's hit so hard by this, like, this drill-looking thing that the robe, or the, like, cloth over his face comes undone. We see Azuma beneath it. But it was not defeat, but the fear of losing, to which he first succumbed. Okay, so, like, Tokyo is so scared of losing, he's become this, the same way that Azuma becomes this monstrous form. Tokyo's done the same thing. But even more powerful? I don't know. But Azuma's panicked now. He's on the back foot. They were made differently. And it's just that on this 2-page spread. As Tokyo, we see has like 3 hands. One on his left, 2 on his right. Each of them carrying that weird... It almost looks like a kanji character, though I must confess I would not know. But he cuts down Azuma, whatever the fuck this new form is. And Azuma just falls defeated as Tokyo stands over him as Azuma hits the water. And then whatever that was leaves him. Tokyo comes back to normal, but like takes all this pain, it feels like. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what just happened there. But Azuma's drowning. He's in the water. He's trying to make it out, but he's just got his ass handed to him, and he sinks. That cloth, billowing over his head towards the surface, and Azuma just thinks, I should still be able to move. I'm supposed to be, but he's not really moving. Or no, he does manage. Good at swimming, and he lands on the ground or something. Yeah, I think he lands on the water, on like the bottom of the lake. Why do I feel so heavy? And he's like draining or something. Like there's this image, the way it like drains feels like a shower drains or something. Damn it! If nothing, and we have this like flashback to them as kids. Then they're like going up the stairs. Azuma looks back at Tokyo, and Tokyo just smiles at him, and Azuma looks away. If nothing had happened, things never would have changed. Okay. And it seems like, oh, were they? I thought that this fight happened below the dam. That, like, they had the bridge where the road stuff happened. And then that road was also the dam. And then when they fell earlier, they were, like, at the lower level. But I think maybe the bridge was above the dam on another level, and then they were at, like, the top of the dam. And that draining was Azuma falling through the dam, where, like, all the water is draining out. Anyway, things never would have changed. I would have always been your hero. And the image here, there's been a lot of shifting in, like, what Azuma's wearing. The chains are the big thing there. Almost like he's been chained down by this feeling of inferiority. But the way the cloth drapes behind him like a cape is what I'm really what's really drawing my attention here. I would have always been your hero. The cape like a superhero. I don't know. It's nice. And then Tokyo's... What the fuck is that form? Okay, so Tokyo's back in some form of beast form. He's got the skull beak that he normally has. But he's got full wings that he doesn't normally have. Except those wings, instead of feathers, those look like fingers. And I just don't know what the hell is going on in Suyashida's head. There's a lot of many great things to say about Choujin that, it really feels like, unlike Ghoul, where, everyone had, the same 4 types of powers and the 4 Kagane types, it just feels like Ishida's imagination is just, running rampant in this series, and it's fun to see. The finger wings are just weird and cool all at once. But yeah, we got Tokyo falling through the sky. He's rescued Azuma. He's flying. He's saved Azuma. And we close on Tokyo, or on Azuma, sort of reflecting on Tokyo as the fledgling vulture floundered through the air. The boy realized that he was no longer the vulture's personal hero. To be continued. Okay. So, a lot happened here. I don't really know where to dive in with all this. When I saw the page count, I thought this would be really long. I was not expecting to get through this entire chapter in, under 15 minutes. But it's real fun. There's a lot of good shit here. As we sort of continue to deal with Azuma. This whole arc, before this arc, I talked a lot in the Sinker stuff and in the early chapters of this arc before Azuma really got involved. And the show's themes on, the concept of justice and who gets to decide what is just, and almost maybe a way to turn into, a commentary on, the state monopoly on violence, how only some people are allowed to fight, whereas others are, restricted. But this really continues the long, hard look we've had the past 5 or so chapters, give or take the one chapter Azuma was dead for. But the long focus on Azuma and his sort of inferiority complex. and he doesn't really solve it. I don't get the sense that he's solved it, you know? Like there's no sense that this is over. He's realized just how far he's fallen to a degree, I think. He's realized that, like, or trying to find quite the right way to phrase this, because it's a really particular thing here. Because, like, you know, the same problem is still there, to an extent. That, or maybe that last bit, he was no longer the Vulture's personal hero, is Azuma realizing that, like, Tokyo placed him on this pedestal, but, so let me start over. What we've already got is that Azuma believes that Tokyo has placed him on this pedestal, and in order to keep him on that pedestal, Tokyo does not, like, move against Azuma in any way. He does not allow himself to be better than Azuma. And that seems to be what the issue was. Not that Tokyo was stronger. Not that Tokyo was, like, the better fighter or something, but that Tokyo weakened himself to make Azuma feel better. And I think that was Azuma's big complaint about the situation. Was that Tokyo lies. Tokyo tells him, you know, this is like, how do I phrase this? Tokyo says, I'm weaker than you, but in reality he's sort of hiding that. And so maybe him acknowledging, if what this last line is getting at is that Azuma is realizing that Tokyo has placed Azuma off that pedestal, has removed him, and is treating them more like equals, or even like Tokyo is a little stronger than him, as we sort of learn that he is, in that three-armed horror show over there. Again, Sui Ishida is just killing it with the forms this week. Or not this week, this chapter. Because there's just some cool as hell Tokyo forms. But anyway, but maybe if you know, maybe Azuma's okay with their situation as long as Tokyo is honest about it. We'll have to sort of wait and see for the next chapter, because it feels like that's still a little bit unclear right now. But yeah, from a character standpoint, that's really the point. Is Azuma, you know, having to acknowledge that things have changed, that they're no longer, you know, the lion and the vulture imagery where Tokyo is Azuma's biggest follower doesn't really work anymore. And so I'm curious if the cloth thing, like the whole, you know, because Chojin become the form that they sort of see themselves as, with the exception of Ellie, who sort of stole Chandra's powers. Like, Tokyo sees himself as the vulture around Azuma's lion, and Azuma sees himself as, like, bound in chains. That was a recurring imagery. When he had that, like, brief moment of consciousness before he was like, stop looking down on me, Tokyo, in the last chapter, his chains grew. And so the chains are all kind of gone by the end of this chapter. Even when we have, you know, in the last bit, I would have always been your hero, he still has, like, the cuffs on, but not the chains. So maybe that's meant to represent him acknowledging that, or Tokyo acknowledging this change in relationship frees him? I don't know. But it is interesting that he does not have the lion vibe. Even though he had the sort of beast Chojin power we saw when he was talking with the hyenas, his Chojin form is not a lion, it's a man wrapped in cloth. Or maybe maybe he's only like that because he's sort of in denial about himself or something. 21 did mention there was still something that he lacked. So maybe it's tied in with that. I don't know. Lots of questions here, but this is an arc that feels really wrapped up in Azuma's mental state, and so it's things worth considering. And I think it all depends on what happens next chapter. So I can't really comment on that until the next chapter comes out. What I can comment on is just how fucking cool this all is. Like, there's so many great panels here. And I mean, I talked before a lot about how fun it feels like Ishida's having with every single chapter of this series. It really just feels like, you know, getting free of consistent release schedules and consistent page counts and, like, magazines has just let the man run wild. He's going to do whatever the fuck he wants, and he's going to have a blast doing it. You know, we have a fair number of 2-page spreads here, all of which are just really cool. I think my favorite is still, like, the mass of feathers that Tokyo turns into right before he turns into the 3-arm. But also just, like, that initial appearance of Tokyo's facelessness is so creepy. It's so good. Like, I love that. And then, you know, we have the three-handed slashing, that they were made differently. We have the finger feather panel. Like, it's just, this manga is really interesting from a narrative standpoint, and from a manga standpoint, from like the art, from the paneling, from all the things that are uniquely manga, it's also just really good. It is a really fucking good series. I fucking love it. The series is amazing. It is, every chapter is just a blast to read. You know, while I don't think it's yet reached the sort of emotional highs that Ghoul did so well, it's just fun. Even when it hurts like hell, I'm having a blast every single chapter. And, like, it's always just so much pain to wait for the next chapter, but we have to do that. But yeah, in the end, amazing chapter. Cannot wait to see where we go from here. But with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, you know, do whatever makes it happy, you know? And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!